everybody, and welcome to the Empowering Industry Podcast. I'm your host, Charli Matthews. I am excited about today and every day on the podcast because I get to bring you a person that I've met who's doing cool things in the industry or just has some knowledge to share. It's so much fun to be able to do that. So if that's you, let me know who you are. Or if you have run into somebody that's super cool that I should interview, also please send them my way. Okay, so today we have Pascal, and you're going to jump on here, introduce yourself, and we've got such a fun conversation for everyone today.
Absolutely, yeah, glad to do so, and really great to be here. So I'm Pascal Lang. I work with Xylem. I'm in the product group looking after some of the digital solutions that we have in the wastewater space. I've been with Xylem for about 3.5 years, but before that also worked with other software providers for the water industry, notably Innovise and the hydraulic modeling tools that are available from that company. And then I'm based in the UK. I worked with Thames Water for 3 years, also worked with Scottish Water for 3 years. So made sure I had some direct utility experience as well, alongside some of the technical pieces that I've learned and picked up over the years. And I first got into the industry straight out of university. And that was really, I would say, the attraction for me was that it's a noble purpose to some degree, right? And the water industry serving a crucial aspect, services of life ultimately. And that's one of the main reasons that I got into water, but also engineering background alongside that. So yeah, really great to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
Awesome, wonderful. And yes, we absolutely agree with that. Water is life. We also say pumps are life, but it's all of this is vital to life. And to your point, it's great to be involved with something that does make such a difference in our everyday lives. Um, why engineering? Why did you get it? And so I also see like this data side and kind of being in the utility, going through engineering, and then kind of this new information piece. I can see why all that's connected, but why did you choose that?
I chose engineering, I think, mainly to be able to make a difference in the world and help construct something that lasts and ultimately has an impact and betters people's lives, ideally. So engineering felt like the right direction for me at the time, certainly. I'm glad that I chose that pathway and that I've had the opportunity to, yeah, work with many different people over the years and hopefully make a small difference here and there as well along the way.
Well, absolutely, absolutely you do. And the digital footprint and that data collection and everything that's going on right now, it's so vital too. So it's definitely that problem solving brain there of okay, well, where are we going? So tell us a little bit about that digital journey and like does it really make pump systems more efficient? Like how does that work?
Yeah, I'd say especially when working at the utilities, just being able to get more insight on what's happening in the networks, whether that's on drinking water networks or in sewer systems and sewer sheds, in the here and now, and maybe how things are building up over time as well, is something that I really enjoyed once I got involved with that more deeply. And as we think about perhaps pump systems in particular, understanding maybe what the degradation of performance looks like, what the impact of those pumps and the controls of those pumps have ultimately further downstream as well as upstream in terms of the location they're pumping from. Some optimization pieces that I worked on also included things like in drinking water networks, optimizing operation to try and make sure that supplies were maintained, pressure was maintained without causing additional risks through water hammer and similar. So I think that just that aspect of collecting the data, getting the insights on what's happening inside your network at any given moment in time, and then being able to make decisions about how better to operate those assets, the pump stations, alongside other controllable assets in order to make sure you continue to provide the service and also have the ability to respond to events. So if I think more about the wastewater side, what happens under heavy rainfall conditions, what happens when we've got significant infiltration, you pick that up from the data. I mean, in some instances, seeing run times on the pump stations, they're increasing gradually, will give you an indicator that there's maybe long-term infiltration that's building up. Being able to tie that back to river levels, groundwater levels, and start building more insights that way is, one of the first times I think I got really passionate about the potential of what you can bring together from these assets and the data that's coming back from the field.
100% and so needed. We see, just increasingly situations where we need to understand that. So, how does one collect all this data though? You talked about a lot of things there. So, can you dive into a little bit about how we are connecting the data?
Absolutely, yes. So typically pump stations, you've got pumps maybe connected through to controllers, and those controllers then have communication protocols that go through to SCADA systems. Alongside that, if you want more contextual information about what's happening in the rest of the catchment, you might couple that together with depth sensors, the wet well levels also coming through. Maybe you're trying to find out the pump performance through some of the energy consumption. You can also have things like temperature or vibrations that are being measured to give you an indication of maybe the efficiency of those pumps alongside that. And I think if you couple that with maybe other conditions like river levels or outfalls, perhaps that could become tide locked or could become waterlocked, maybe rainfall conditions observed as well as forecast, you can really start to build a picture of what's happening across the entire catchment and how the pump assets, but also others are basically mechanisms that we can leverage in some way to change the behavior of the catchment given the conditions that are there or that are just about to emerge. And that's really the piece that I'm absolutely passionate about, is that holistic picture and trying to protect the environment as well as people in those moments where there's distributed stress, I would say, across an entire catchment.
Yeah, and you're talking about that holistic approach to management too. I've been thinking about that, and it makes me think of, people and having the ability to understand their jobs, right? We talk about like cross training and things like that a lot of the times, but shifting that kind of mindset into equipment and what's going on with your system and being able to understand that. So I think there's twofold there, like the people and the equipment communicating with each other and understanding it. Am I
Yeah,
grasping
most
that?
definitely. I think one of the times that we've been able to be most impactful was when perhaps I was in one of the engineering teams looking at how systems could be controlled, the control strategies for that, as well as this data coming in. But rather than simply saying, whenever we expect flooding in a certain location or whenever we think we've detected something, we'll simply alert the field teams and the operational teams. We took a slightly different approach that seemed to be far more successful in terms of maybe just sitting down in some of their meetings, the operational meetings, listening to the problems that are being faced on a day-to-day basis, and then figuring out where could we potentially make a difference with these additional data points, the analysis that we can do on it, and help to basically alert on situations before they really become consequential, so that the field teams then have more early warning, more ability to respond, and ultimately help to prevent some of that impact. So yeah, I think some key learnings there for me during my career, certainly as
Yeah,
I've
that
even.
preventative or predictive maintenance that's happening there, or just even thinking about it, strategy around it, right? With that in mind, versus like when you're reacting, right? You're kind of in fight and flight kind of thing. If something is like stressful is happening, you're trying to manage it then. So I like that. I understand that. So it makes sense to me, but what is
Great.
the obstacle, right, of getting people to engage with this digital, I guess, transformation journey? What is holding us back?
I think in some instances there might be a perception that unless you take the full journey, there's no benefit to be gained. And I think that's perhaps a somewhat a misperception. So if you consider an initial starting point where you're connecting up your assets, you're getting visibility on what's happening at your pump stations, even something, I want to say simple, but something like the availability of those assets and where have we got failures that are being reported, what's the availability across an entire station, and therefore how do we inform some of our maintenance activities that way? That starts to provide some evidence for the decision making. And then as you progress and you complement that with further data, like for example, rainfall data or sensor data from the rest of the network, you might be able to start picking up some additional insights, such as, the levels in this pump are increasing, but we're also expecting further inflows as a result of this heavy rainfall that's on the way. And therefore, this is a site that we really need to get to as quickly as possible. Alongside that station data itself, just telling you maybe where there's degradation or where you might want to consider replacement or maintenance on the pumps as a result of some of the signals that are coming back. So these are all some of the introduction, I would say some of the earlier steps that you might go through before then building up towards, if we have a catchment and we've got 20 pump stations across that catchment, it's split into different areas, maybe northeast and a northwest area, and we've got localized rainfall in one location that's going to stress it there and potentially cause flooding. Is there a way that we can basically use the capacity towards the sewage treatment works from that stressed area and hold back some of the flows through automated controls on the other network side, and therefore distribute that stress more evenly across the
It makes me think about kind of cities, and
system. Kind of is the pinnacle.
it makes me think about like cities and regions talking to each other. Are we doing some of that kind of across utilities?
Perhaps perhaps more single catchments for cities that have those localized stress points, but alongside that, certainly the learnings as these systems are implemented, as the stages and steps for that digital transformation are taken, just the ability to share, here's what we saw from the data in the first instance, here are some of the conclusions that we draw. Suddenly, when we brought them all into one place, we had this additional context of all these different data points together, which visually already indicated something to us. Then we overlaid some analytics that told us when there were perhaps blockages forming or infiltration events. And that allowed us to hone in on a day-to-day basis where we need to carry out activities. Those types of stories certainly are being shared across cities and regions, most definitely.
Yeah, and the storytelling of and learning, just of sharing that, right? I think of the technical writings and things that y'all do on a regular basis. That makes sense to me. Just to okay, let's go and kind of have those best practices and share them out, right? That makes us all better. Okay, I like that. Okay, so just kind of moving forward, I guess what is next in this arena? Do you have an ask for people here?
Yeah, I would say one of the next stages that I'm hugely excited about, and it'd be great to know whether there's also excitement or thoughts already around this in the industry as well, is that as we start to think about bringing together all these data sets in one place and being able to leverage them across different applications, are there perhaps what we tend to think of them as cross-functional areas where we can deliver benefit? For example, if we have an understanding of what's happening in the network, and we're also have an understanding of what's happening at the plant, coupling those two things and being able to inform the operations that we're carrying out at the treatment plant with maybe forecasts of what we expect to happen from the sewer network in response to rainfall events, the time of day, and the flows that are coming through. So predictive loading to the plant, flow rates, how can that enable decision making at the plant? But then also beyond that, are there other ones, such as, for example, a water mains burst that happens, causes significant flooding as a result, and then enters the sewer system. We see maybe the pumps responding to that on a day when we're not expecting those types of flow rates, and being able to draw conclusions from that about, okay, something's not quite right here, let's go and investigate quickly, and bring that visibility across parts of the organization. So I think for me, that's the next kind of frontier. What are the different things that we can look into that span across or historically, segregated systems in some way in terms of how they're viewed?
Yeah, and I just think about collaboration, communication. How do we connect better and kind of trust each other better? So we work on that, when we are connecting people in our connection hub over there, Empowering Pumps and Industry Conference, Epic. We love what we're creating there. It's been wonderful to see people come together, like minds, the innovative thinking, because we do have to think about the future, even though we got to work on today and make sure everything is running efficiently and effectively, but we also need to be having that forethought as well. So thank you. I feel like I could talk to you for a long time about this, but I do want to have a little rapid fire questions before I let you go.
Sure.
What is your favorite book?
Oh, I would say for me, a favorite book that I've read is probably The Lord of the Rings, if I'm honest. Yeah,
Yes, yes.
definitely enjoyed that.
Yes, honesty is good here. And then what about music? You got any favorite tunes?
So I recently saw the Foo Fighters with my son, so that was a great experience. Certainly enjoyed that. Yeah,
Yeah, so live
it was right
music.
up
And
there for
then
me.
the next question is, what is the best advice you've ever received?
Oh, um, I'd probably say the best advice that I've ever received is that, throughout your career to both follow the passion that you have, and alongside that, the people that you work most closely with are hugely important as you take those steps. And so certainly managers that I've worked with when I've been interviewed, I've also very much thought about what would it be like to work with this person and within this team. And that's really stood me in good stead, I think.
I love that. Now it's your turn. You get to do it. what advice would you give people coming into the water space?
Oh, I would say that the water space is hugely varied is one of the things that I've learned. So my I guess expertise historically was on drinking water networks, then wastewater networks. Since working at Xylem, I've also had a lot of exposure to both expertise when it comes to pumps as well as treatment processes. And so I think there's always a learning opportunity within the water industry. It's such a broad area where you can basically find the area of passion within that. And that would probably be my advice is don't try to hone in on one particular aspect too quickly as you join, but rather consider this whole breadth and soak it all up, learn from that, and then decide which avenues suit you best.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for your time. If people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, so my email is pascal.lang@xylem.com. I think that would probably be the best way, or you feel free to connect on LinkedIn if there are any questions or thoughts. More than happy to engage there, and really appreciate this opportunity to speak with you today.
Awesome. So y'all heard it. Connect with Pascal and, check out the water industry. You may be thinking about going into that. There's so many different careers and jobs and so important. We don't have life without water. So definitely jump into that. Looking forward to seeing y'all soon. And until next time, be empowering.